Thank you for joining us today. We're here to talk about a very important topic, a topic that has become a big part of the discussion at the federal level as well as the state level, and it should be also at the local level, and that is wage equality. And we are here to observe Equal Wage Day and to focus on the issue of economic opportunity for women in the city of New Bedford and Greater New Bedford generally. Pay equity and economic opportunity are important issues for women across the United States, and here in particular. At every educational level, women in New Bedford are earning less than men. According to a recent report by the UMass Dartmouth Public Policy Center that the Women's Fund released just recently. It's not until women earn a bachelor's degree that the wage gap narrows, but even then, there's still a gap. We in my administration have tried to live up to the values of giving women every opportunity to succeed. So let me brag a little bit. So of my staff, the 6 staff members in the mayor's office, 5 are women. In my administration, we've hired some 15 cabinet members, 10 are women. And then I have 3 daughters, so I'm kind of biased, if you want to say I'm biased. And my wife is the busiest person in my household, and I'm let's just say I'm not the one bringing home the bacon, okay? So I really believe in this stuff, and so I think there are ways to address it. There are laws, of course, but the laws that protect against discrimination in pay and hiring and promotion only take us so far. It really does require a certain ethic. It requires certain cultural changes, a certain awareness that allows employers to recognize that everybody deserves to be paid for the fruits of their labor, the quality of their work, the timeliness, the appropriateness of their work, regardless of who they are, their walk of life, and certainly their gender. So I encourage all New Bedford area employers to begin to take a hard look at your salary scales by gender, as well as the percentage of women in top level leadership positions. We need to understand that we have to first sensitize ourselves if we're going to work toward a solution. And we also need to create more opportunities for women in Greater New Bedford to build the American dream for their families, because we've heard the stories. We've heard stories of women who have had children at young ages and then try to get back into the workforce, and there are impediments in front of them to really get on a professional track that enables them to care for their family and also advance themselves professionally in ways that they expect and that men would expect of themselves. So we need to take this issue seriously, and we are fortunate that we have the Women's Fund and other institutions and great leadership in the city and in the region to help the community understand this problem and to lead a way toward a constructive solution. So I'm proud today to invite Val Bassett from the Women's Fund, who will announce a new task force that will develop recommendations for improving women's economic development opportunities in our city and region. And I have assigned a staff person, Christine Arsenal, from my office, who will be part of that task force, because as we all know, we can't afford to leave anybody's talent behind. It's not the American way, and it's not right. So it's my pleasure now to introduce someone who has really hit the ground running as the leader of the Women's Fund, and she's really made her presence felt in Greater New Bedford and has really taken on this very tricky and complex issue head on, and as is appropriate for someone who heads the Women's Fund, and that's Val Bassett. Val.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. We're very pleased to be joined by some mostly seniors from Global Learning Charter Public School who are in a social justice class, I believe, social change, to learn about what we're doing. Global Learning Charter School is part of the task force that we're talking about today. But before I talk about the task force and make that announcement, I want to share the story of a young woman and her struggle and her success, a young woman from New Bedford, a young mother trying to build a better life, and what a long time that journey takes. Now, we invited Fallon Fernandez, who is a young mom in our LifeWork project, to be here today to tell her story. She's a single mom with a young daughter who was very sick this morning, so she's home taking care of her daughter and couldn't be here. But Des, do you want to bring her picture up? So this is Fallon with her mentor, Nancy Pimentel. Fallon Fernandez is about 30 years old, and she started the program while she was enrolled in the Bristol Community College, and she just graduated in December from BCC with her associate's degree. And she, yes, exactly. And hers was a long and bumpy journey to get that degree. And she also just decided, as a result of being in our program, to apply to and to continue to UMass Dartmouth. So she was accepted into the health sciences program there. She's taking one more class at BCC to be eligible for that program. And that's really what we're about. When we look out and see women and young people in New Bedford, we see opportunity. We see the future of New Bedford. But what we want to do is make sure that we create the pathways and opportunities for that to be a bright future. So here's what Fallon said, and I asked her to write about her challenges as well as supports along the way. She says, "Good morning, everyone. Although I couldn't make it this morning, I want to thank you for taking time to listen and understand what these amazing people are working for. When I decided to go back to school, I was just about 27, afraid and unsure. I had questions that many of us as single mothers have, like how am I going to balance school, work, the house, kids, homework, etc.? Who is going to babysit the kids if needed? So many thoughts run through our heads that we think to ourselves, there's no way. I'm only one person. Maybe I'll wait a little while. I want to tell you, don't. Get up and go for it, whatever it is. Talk to someone that might be able to help steer you in the right direction. See what services are available. Maybe it's financial aid for school. Maybe it's help finding work or daycare. But you will never know if you don't take that first step. There are a lot of programs out there available to us as women that we are unaware of, such as LifeWorks and the task force that is in the making. We as women have to fight together for ourselves because who else will? Although I would say there's a lot of people in this room who will. We are who our children look up to. So it's our job not to give up and show them they can reach the moon if they want. But we have to want to reach the moon too. Anything is possible with dedication, perseverance, having someone believe in you, but most important, believing in yourself. This program has opened doors and made me believe in me more than I already did. Thank you for your time." When we talk about unequal wages and women's poverty and the fact that 1 out of every 4 women in New Bedford and Fall River is living in poverty, it often leaves out the hope and inspiration that's in the real lives of each person. I asked Fallon to talk about her challenges, but what did she do? She shared something to inspire other women in her situation, which I was very moved by. So I think we want to carry that fire to also inspire and support other women who are trying to make change and trying to find their way in a not always easy situation. So we're here today for Fallon and tens of thousands of other women in New Bedford and the region who bear extra burdens as they try to get ahead. We're here for girls, like the girls here from Global Learning, so that they don't have to wait until 2058 to earn a salary that's equal to their male counterparts. Today, Equal Pay Day, we reflect on the fact that there is still a significant wage gap and much higher rates of poverty for women, especially in this region. But it is a day to recommit to closing that gap for all women, a gap which is even wider for women of color. It's the Women's Fund's 15th anniversary this year, and we are reinvigorating our approach to understanding and improving women's economic security. Today, I'm here to announce that we are convening a new task force to help map out a better economic future for women and girls. We are calling it the Task Force on Pathways to a Living Wage, and I am joined here by many of the members. Part of the premise of this task force is that by improving women's economic health, we will improve the region's overall educational and economic success. That's why this group of over 50 organizations has come together, from the New Bedford Public Schools to foundations, social service organizations, the Workforce Investment Board and other economic development folks, the Coalition for Social Justice, higher education, early education centers, all united with one purpose: to make recommendations to improve women's economic development. Because the high rates of women's poverty and single female-headed households in this region, we are not just focused on wage equity, but really on women earning a living wage, enough money to support themselves and a family. That's why we're calling it the Task Force on Pathways for Women to a Living Wage. The task force is reading the research and hearing from local and state experts what economic and educational infrastructure will lead to better outcomes for women in our region. Expanded early education, better career pathways and counseling in middle and high school, working with employers to assure equal pay for equal work, probably all of these things and more. The goal of this task force is quite simply to figure out what will it take to move the needle. And then it will be up to us as a community to help move that needle. The group will meet through the fall and release recommendations in the fall of 2015, as well as our commitments for how to accomplish them. We at the Women's Fund have committed to continue to monitor the data. How are women doing? Working with UMass Dartmouth Public Policy Center, and to invest our own resources in these solutions. And we ask our colleagues in the group to also think about and make commitments for what they can do to make change. It is now my pleasure to introduce my co-chair in the task force, Jean Fox.
Well, good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's well rested. This task force is very exciting, and I'm really proud to be part of it. I'm proud of all the people that take time and want to be a part of this, because it is, as Val indicated, it's going to produce real and tangible results in the end. We're going to come up with recommendations and we're going to act on them. So none of the data that we are looking at is new. In fact, if you'll notice, my colleague here, Tracy, is wearing 1950s garb. There's a reason for that. Val was going to do 2058, but we didn't know what that looked like. There's a reason, and that is this gap that we're all talking about. And as Val also indicated, that gap is slowly narrowing, but it's molasses in January slowly. So there's nothing we don't already know, but there is a course of action we're going to chart out. When we fail our women, ladies and gentlemen, we fail our community. Women are the foundation of every community, and we need to make sure that they are empowered with the tools they need to bring up their children to be productive members of society while they themselves can be productive. So this legislation that the mayor and Val have both referred to, the Equal Pay Day, there is legislation to really push this ahead. And actually one of the penners of this legislation is going to be joining the task force at a future meeting, Rep. Jay Livingstone, who really fought hard for women, basically saying, wait a minute, why do women have to go into a job and into an interview and reveal what they made at their previous job? That already sets them at a disadvantage, so that's going to go away. But more than that, what we have today is an opportunity to build awareness around something we've already known so much about, right? So I attended a conference last fall called the New England Women's Policy Conference. What was at the top of the agenda? Pay equity. I am on the Bristol County Commission on the Status of Women, and I'm on the Policy Subcommittee for the Mass Commission. What's at the top of the agenda? Pay equity. What's at the top of our agenda here as a task force, as a community? Pay equity, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're here for. That's what we need to fight for, and we will. There's a whole bunch of people going up to Beacon Hill today. So basically, this task force is going to come up with great stuff. We applaud all the people that are part of it, and we certainly hope that you feel free to join us at any time if you're interested. The Women's Fund webpage has all the details on it. And finally, one final comment. On 15 years as a Women's Fund, Val has propelled us into the next level. There's no question about it. In people years, 15's adolescence, right? Well, in organization years, it's a toddler. But I'm saying the Women's Fund is an incredibly precocious toddler. And we're going to see some great things coming in the future. Thank you so much for your time. Mayor, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, sure. Does anybody have any questions?
I think that's a very good question, first of all, and the fact that women are asked to reveal their prior pay grade does set them at a disadvantage. But the other thing is that there are a lot of the jobs that women typically occupy are in the lower paying sectors, or traditionally lower paying. So for example, teachers and nurses, although professional at every step of the way and certified and credentialed, those pay scales have typically been lower historically. So, but men with the same kind of credentialing, say a BS, will be in a sector, an employment sector, where pay rates are higher. So there's also a woman who I've worked with in the past at UMass, Julie Parker, who's done a great job at preparing a presentation for women, and it's a very important one, because we as women also have to take some responsibility for this, and that is that we fail to adequately negotiate our pay. And why is that? A lot of it's because we're mothers, and we're afraid if we say, no, we don't want 25,000, we want 30, they're going to tell us to take a hike and we have no job. So there's a fear factor in there. So I see the classic jobs, the historic lower rates are typically, those are jobs that are typically occupied by women. In the past, women didn't have to be the lion or the breadwinner in the family, right? They relied in the Ozzie and Harriet days on the daddy to do that. It's a very different environment right now. Our climate is totally different. We have way too many women. 1 in every 4 is poor, and more than half are struggling to put food on the table. So I think, unless you have anything to add, Val or Mayor?
Just add, I mean, I think that the issue of comparable pay for comparable work is a big and thorny one.
Yeah.
And there is state legislation, the equal pay legislation, that would put together a statewide task force to look at what are some steps that could be taken to start to categorize jobs that are comparable and begin to look at some accountability. I think the other effort, as the mayor referenced, that is going on, you know, in many places, including in Massachusetts, is really to work with employers as partners to start to measure where are they. You know, a lot of places don't necessarily know if they're not looking at it. Where are the wages for women and where are the wages for men? Are women in senior leadership positions? So start with gathering the information and then begin to think about there are a lot of practices out there to change that, and many companies have made those changes. Often government positions tend to be more equal than others because they're more transparent. So actually having accountability and transparency for wages goes a long way. So I think there's a lot that can be done in that regard.
A lot of the effort here is, you know, this is no comment on the Equal Pay Act, or Equal Pay Day Act, but you know, the law can only take us so far. I think there has to be some cultural changes, and you know, it's efforts like this that sensitize employers to disparities in wages. And look, you know, we can look at the aggregated figures and say, and it's hard to dispute that there are inequities, but you know, when you drill down to the employer level, there are all sorts of ways to explain away available why a man and a woman in similar positions are not paid equally, you know, and so it really, what we're trying to do here is force employers to really think hard about that and think hard about the rationale for why they pay people what they do, and whether they do it in ways that are, even at a subconscious level, are probably not appropriate. All right, well, thank you very much. Do you have a question?
I was going to ask, do you think there's any more openings for like advancing on this topic with the upcoming years because of the elections and how there's a chance of a female president?
Absolutely.
Good question.
I think-
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think it'll be on the agenda quite a bit because of
I
that.
think it already is.
Well, it is. President Obama has
Yes,
spoken
that is
at length about pay equity, gender equity, and compensation. So the issue's pretty ripe, as
Yeah.
Jean was describing. All right, thank you, everybody. I really want to thank the task force for taking on this very hard and important work. Thank you, guys.